Od zrakoplova, preko ratnih vođa i bitaka, do izuma. Ratovanje je oblikovalo naše živote. Unaprijedili su ga tehnološke inovacije. I vojnici gurnuti do ruba. Utrka za taktičkom prednošću često je odlučujući čimbenik u ratu.
There's always a technological race in warfare.
Sophisticated new technology. Development of the first computers.
Technology has massively changed the face of warfare in the 20th century.
Ova serija prikazuje i rangira najpoznatija i najutjecajnija obilježja ratovanja s inovacijama koje su promijenile pravila igre i obuzele ljudsku maštu, te u kritičnom trenutku promijenile odnos snaga. Ovo je top lista odlika modernog ratovanja. U ovom ćemo nastavku vidjeti bitke koje su promijenile tijek ratova, te ih rangirati prema njihovim razmjerima, taktičkim inovacijama, slavnom statusu i općenitom utjecaju na pobjedu u ratu.
Battles have changed the course of history.
It is not going to go away. War is part of our human makeup.
Battles make history, they change history, and that is why we remain so fascinated by them.
Na 10. je mjestu bitka koja je odredila ishod Zaljevskog rata. 2. kolovoza 1990. iračka vojska Sadama Huseina napala je malenu susjednu zemlju Kuvajt. Oklopna vozila ušla su u glavni grad. Helikopteri su dovezli vojnike koji su osigurali središte grada. Kad je 4 mjeseca poslije istekao UN-ov rok za mirno povlačenje postrojbi, u glavnom gradu Iraka, Bagdadu, prkosne mase pripremale su se za rat.
Any aggression against Iraq, we will all fight.
Are you prepared to die for that?
Yes, sure.
Hoteći potpuno poraziti iračke kopnene snage, koalicija predvođena SAD-om počela ih i snažno bombardirati iz zraka. Bio je to početak operacije Pustinska oluja.
The strategy for Desert Storm was initially to use air power to completely degrade Iraq's ability to defend itself.
Teško naoružani nevidljivi lovci ciljali su iračka vojna postrojenja. Zrakoplove je dočekala intenzivna protuzračna paljba. Platforme iračke protuzračne obrane bile su glavne mete i zrakoplovi su ih pogađali s ubojitom preciznošću. Nakon 12 dana snažnog bombardiranja, iračke oklopne divizije odlučile su se obračunati s koalicijskim snagama u gradu Al-Kavdžiju.
Saddam Hussein felt that a ground operation was feasible in its own right, and to some extent he was proved correct in that the Iraqis were able to take Kafji.
Koalicijske snage otišle su u Saudijsku pustinju kako bi oslobodile taj grad. Mnogi su vojnici prvi put imali priliku upotrijebiti znanje stečeno na obuci.
I think the thing that took a lot of us by surprise was just the sheer size of it. I mean, this desert was bigger than anything we had ever seen. I mean, you couldn't fly across this desert on 2 loads of gas. It was huge and desolate and barren.
Uslijedila je odlučujuća kopnena bitka Zaljevskog rata. Na 10. je mjestu na našoj ljestvici bitka za Al-Kavdži. Sukob. Zaljevski rat 1991. Mjesto Saudijska Arabija. Vrijeme od 29. siječnja do 1. veljače. sukobljene strane. Iračka vojska protiv koalicije saudijskih, katarskih i američkih snaga.
You know, there are enemy tanks that have moved into Kafji. Check. Iraqis have come down for the first time. Yes. And invaded a city in Saudi Arabia. What do you men want to do with them?
Destroy them. What do you destroy us?
And look here, we got two unidentified vehicles up there in the front, so keep an eye on.
Saveznici su planirali zaustaviti napredovanje iračke vojske i osloboditi grad.
The attack on Kafji involved Iraqi armor and motorized infantry. It's a significant moment because it demonstrated that it wasn't all going to go the coalition's way and that they needed to take into account the somewhat more basic but still potent capability of the Iraqi forces.
Isprva su koalicijske snage bile zadržane, a zatim su krenule u napad. Ova jedinica bila je naoružana teškom strojnicom kalibra 12,7 mm. Pod zaštitom naoružanih vojnih helikoptera, Marinci su krenuli u ofenzivu na tlu.
Batteries of US Marine howitzers have been pounding Iraqi positions inside Kuwait, forcing the enemy back onto the defensive. Tonight, Allied artillery is pinning down Iraqi troops still holed up in Al-Kafji.
Dok su tenkovi napredovali na tlu, više od 200 zrakoplova 4 dana tuklo neprijateljske položaje prije nego što je iračka ofenziva napokon zaustavljena. Marinci su ušli u grad. Neprijatelji su pobjegli ili su zarobljeni. Bitka je imala visoku cijenu. Poginulo je 25 Amerikanaca i 18 saudijskih vojnika. Na iračkoj strani bilo oko 2000 žrtava. Za američke snage to bila najkrvavija bitka nakon Vijetnama.
It had long ago been agreed that the honor of liberating the capital would fall to them. And to greet them, the people of Kuwait, who'd been freed from 7 months of virtual house arrest.
Poslije bitke za Al-Kafji, iračke su snage bile u defenzivi. Unutar mjesec dana glavni je grad oslobođen i kuvajtske su postrojbe povele operaciju oslobađanja. Irak je prihvatio uvjete prekida vatre i rat protiv Sadama završio je. Bitka za Al-Kafji odredila ishod prvoga zaljevskog rata 1991. i na 10. je mjestu naše ljestvice. Sljedeća je na našoj listi bitka koja je promijenila tijek svjetske povijesti. Godine 1948. nakon drugog svjetskog rata, Kina je bila u gospodarskom rasulu. Stanovništvo izvan gradova bilo je nezaposleno i živjelo je u teškoj neimaštini. Građanski rat podijelio je golemu zemlju. S jedne strane bile su nacionalističke snage Kuomintanga, koje je predvodio predsjednik Chiang Kai-shek iz glavnog grada. S druge strane bile su komunističke snage pod vodstvom Mao Tse-tunga, koji je stjecao sve veću potporu na selu. Kad su mirovni pregovori između dviju strana propali, definirane su crte bojišnice.
Chiang Kai-shek was in a very good position militarily, stronger armed forces, and he even had military knowledge as being a general. Mao was a political and military leader. The strategy was to be strong in the countryside, to win the support of the people there, to build up military forces, and only then move to urban centers, encircle these towns and take them when the time was right.
Uporište je na bojištu bio grad Suzhou i upravo je bitka koja se ondje vodila dospjela na 9. mjesto na našoj top listi. Sukob, kineski građanski rat. Sukobljene strane, nacionalna revolucionarna vojska protiv komunističke narodno-oslobodilačke vojske. Stradanja na strani nacionalista, 250.000 mrtvih ili ranjenih. Stradanja narodno-oslobodilačke vojske, oko 100.000.
The numbers involved were enormous.
You have hundreds of thousands of communist forces taking on their opponents, the nationalists, who also have, of course, hundreds of thousands of forces.
Nacionalistička strategija bila je braniti područje štiteći vanjske položaje sa 7 vojnih divizija. Ali to je značilo da će biti raštrkane, što je išlo Mao na ruku.
Mao's strategy, as always, is to concentrate massive force on the weakest point of the enemy, to take out the weakest guy.
The strategy was to use the advantage of numbers and through a series of battles destroy pieces of the nationalist army bit by bit, various divisions bit by bit, to encircle them and then destroy them.
U nizu bitaka oko Suzhoua, koje su trajale 39 dana, nacionalističke snage trpjele su teške gubitke. Više od 100.000 vojnika ubijeno je ili ranjeno.
Very, very highly trained and well-equipped nationalist forces were basically annihilated. And this sent the message to the rest of China that the war was going only one way, and that way was Mao's way.
Nakon pada Suzhoua, diljem Kine počeli su narodni prosvjedi. Za nekoliko mjeseci komunisti su zauzeli Peking i Mao je proglasio Narodnu republiku Kinu. Rat je završio. Bitka kod Suzhoua na 9. je mjestu na našoj top listi. Sljedeća je bitka malenih razmjera koja će imati posljedice na globalnoj razini. Godina je 1993. Mogadišu, Somalija, na istočnoj obali Afrike. Ta je zemlja dotad već 2 godine bila u vihoru krvavih sukoba. Snage UN-a došle su uvesti red u zemlju uz pomoć američkih postrojba.
Our objective here is to come in and display maximum force to let everybody know that we mean business.
We are here to help these people, not to hurt them.
People need help, that's what we're here for.
And what it's going to mean to us is we've got a secure environment. I mean, before here in the port, you had fighting, people being shot all the time. You couldn't unload the food. You had it being extorted. You had trucks coming in and driving off with food.
Tijekom sljedećih nekoliko tjedana tenzije su rasle. Kako bi spriječio otvoreni sukob, SAD je odlučio zarobiti najmoćnijeg milicijskog vođu, opasnog generala Aidida. Lov na njega pretvorit će se u bitku u Mogadišu. Sukob. Somalijski građanski rat. Sukobljene strane. Američki specijalci protiv plemenske milicije. Snage od 4 do 6 tisuća pripadnika milicije protiv 160 specijalaca. Glavno naoružanje milicije, ručni raketni bacači RPG.
Helicopter gunships provided cover while UN ground troops closed in on General Aidid and his militiamen, urging them to surrender. His stockpile of weapons seized. By now, the United Nations had ordered General Aidid's arrest, but he was already on the run.
I think I'm stronger than any time in the past. I'm a free man. I'm staying in my land. I'm Somali. I'm with my people. Therefore, I'm in a very good position.
Kako je traženi čovjek bio u bijegu, 3 mjeseca poslije Aididov je zapovjedni centar ponovno bio meta američkog napada. Ovi su put željeli zarobiti zapovjednikove poručnike. Američki helikopteri letjeli su iznad grada i napadali postrojenje.
The actual operation which started the Battle of Mogadishu, it involved moving a small detachment of Delta Force operators into the center of Mogadishu, protected by a company of US Army Rangers who would seize these ID'd men.
Ali operacija nije išla prema planu.
The situation then became increasingly confused. What should have been a quick surgical operation turned into an enormous sort of shambles. Groups of American soldiers within Mogadishu were isolated and besieged, in effect, by Somali militias.
Uslijedila je 15-satna borba. Omiljeno oružje pripadnika milicije, ručni raketni bacač RPG.
RPGs in the hands of somebody who's fairly skilled in their use can be incredibly destructive. Although the sighting on them is extremely crude, a helicopter is a fairly large target to hit. A one struck by an RPG has no chance whatsoever.
Naciljali su 2 helikoptera Black Hawk i pogodili ih. U bici je poginulo više od 500 somalijskih pripadnika milicije, no pobunjenici su slavili pobjedu. Njihov ključni trofej, 2 helikoptera Black Hawk koje su oborili RPG-om.
You have millions of dollars worth of helicopter crashing to the ground in flames, fired by somebody who had probably never even shot at a helicopter before, and using a rocket warhead that costs about $30.
U srušenim helikopterima preživjela je samo jedna osoba, a ubijeno je ukupno 18 američkih vojnika. Ono što je počelo kao humanitarna misija završilo je ponižavajućim povlačenjem američkih snaga iz regije.
It had a profound impact because it made Americans and it made the American military question their ability to get involved in interventions of this kind.
Bitka u Mogadišu nije najveća ni najkrvavija na našoj ljestvici, no njezine šokantne posljedice osigurale su joj 8. mjesto. Slijedi najveća tenkovska bitka u povijesti.
Many battles have turned on the tiniest chances of fate. What if this had happened? What if that had happened? And those kind of questions fascinate historians and keep us talking about battles and war so much.
Rusija 1943. Hitlerov Wehrmacht borio se protiv Staljinove crvene armije. Do ljeta 1943. Njemci su bili u defenzivi, no pojačali su snage novim naoružanjem, uključujući moćni tank Tiger. Sukobljene vojske okupile su se oko ruskog grada Kurska. Što je Hitler planirao? Ponovno steći prednost.
The problem, though, is the Russians are waiting and they know what's coming at them. This is an attack that there's no sense of surprise here.
The Russians, and right up to the eve of battle, are building monstrous defences all around that Kursk salient. There are up to 7 lines, defensive lines, defending it, each of which are riddled with mines, wire, gun emplacements and vast amounts of firepower.
Na 7. mjestu Kurska bitka. Sukob, Drugi svjetski rat. Njemačke snage, 900.000 vojnika, 2.700 tenkova, 10.000 komada artiljerije. Sovjetske snage, 1,3 milijuna vojnika, 3.600 tenkova, 30.000 komada artiljerije.
It's the largest firepower battle because there was some 30,000 artillery pieces. You've got an artillery piece every 10 meters. That is a level which is entirely unprecedented.
Unatoč teškoj paljbi, njemački su tenkovi napredovali.
There were over 2 million men involved, and there were sort of around 6,000 tanks.
Russians, by using mines, by using anti-tank ditches, by using their artillery might, they are actually able to defeat and absorb the massive power of these advancing tanks, and more tanks at Kursk are actually knocked out by minefield and tank traps and the terrain, in essence, than were actually knocked out by the enemy's anti-tank guns.
Nakon 2 tjedna intenzivne borbe, ruski protunapadi prisilili su Njemce da se povuku 70 km unatrag. No pobjeda je skupo stajala Crvenu armiju. Imali su 860.000 žrtava i više od 1000 uništenih tenkova. Iako su Njemci pretrpjeli manje gubitke, 200.000 žrtava i 500 tenkova, to je posljednji put da su išli u pohod na istok. Hitlerov je plan propao.
After the Battle of Kursk in the summer of '43, really the German army is consistently on the retreat.
What is most significant about Kursk is it marks this era of new professionalism in the Red Army. They've really worked out how to defeat the Germans by this point.
Kurska bitka bila je najveća tenkovska bitka u Drugom svjetskom ratu i na 7. je mjestu na našoj ljestvici. Sljedeća je jedna zračna bitka. Do kraja lipnja 1940. kontinentalna je Europa bila u njemačkim rukama. Francuska je pala i Britanija je trebala biti sljedeća. Dok je Hitler planirao pomorsku invaziju, strašni i dobro naoružani Luftwaffe nastoje je steći kontrolu nad nebom iznad Engleskog kanala.
As far as Churchill was concerned, the Germans were poised to invade. If we lost aerial supremacy, the door was basically wide open, so we had to win.
Na 6. mjestu bitka za Britaniju. Sukob, Drugi svjetski rat. Vrijeme od 10. srpnja do 31. listopada 1940. Procijenjeni broj zrakoplova spremnih za borbu na početku bitke, njemački Luftwaffe 2500, britansko zrakoplovstvo 640.
Battle royal begins, and the Royal Air Force are still shooting them down at the rate of about 4 to 1.
No one would question that the Battle of Britain was of enormous strategic importance.
This is a battle for national survival. We were determined to fight to the absolute end and die trying if necessary.
Prvog dana bitke tek je šačica zrakoplova branila Britaniju od njemačkog moćnog Luftwaffea. Nebo je tjednima bilo poprište zračnih borba. Nakon mjesec dana zračne borbe, Luftwaffe je pripremio flotu bombardera i lovaca za novi val napada. Koji im je bio cilj? Uništiti britansku protuzračnu obranu. Dok su se njemački bombarderi približavali, protuzračni topovi pucali su s tla, a piloti su ponovno krenuli u akciju.
I had never seen so many planes in the sky at one time.
Suddenly we heard on the RT from down below, we've been hit. Looked down, and the airfield had disappeared completely. And 120 bombs had just blotted out.
Za britanski se uspjeh ključnom pokazala nova tehnologija. Radar.
Fighter Command's strategy for defending the UK was centered around being able to react to incoming attacks.
Duž britanske obale 40 radara nadziralo je obalno područje 24 sata na dan. Mogli su opaziti zrakoplove na udaljenosti od 150 km.
Britain has the first fully coordinated air defense system the world has ever known, and it's unbelievably efficient and well thought through.
Nakon 67 dana mukotrpne obrane, sljedeći jutarnji napad 15. rujna bio je konačni obračun. 500 nacističkih bombardera i lovaca krenulo je u napad. Suprotstavilo im se 500 lovaca Spitfirea i Hurricane-a.
On that particular day, we had a great success. And I was firing at one Dornier 17, and I was obviously hitting it because they began to bail out. A little later, I saw another Dornier 17 flying across my middle. I attacked that, and it was streaming and very unhappy. It would splosh into the water. So I was credited with 4 aircraft on that particular flight.
Britanija je bila gurnuta do samih granica. No nakon 4 mjeseca borbe u zraku, dobila je bitku za Britaniju. U njoj je stradalo 1000 britanskih zrakoplova i gotovo 2000 njemačkih. Bio je to Hitlerov prvi ratni poraz. Postignuće ekipa lovaca prepoznao je i pohvalio premijer Winston Churchill.
Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
Bitka za Britaniju na 6. je mjestu naše ljestvice. Došli smo do prvih 5 mjesta na našoj top listi ratnih bitaka. Dosad smo vidjeli pustinsku borbu, bitku koja je iznjedrila novu državu, te slavni sukob u zraku. Još nas čeka prekretnica u pomorskom ratovanju, te najveća bitka u povijesti. Ali i sljedeća je pomorska bitka. U prosincu 1941. Japanci su napali Pearl Harbor. Američka mornarica gotovo je potpuno uništena. Tijekom sljedećih mjeseci, mornarica SAD-a poslala je u akciju najveću flotu dotad, 16 bojnih brodova, 7 nosača zrakoplova, 33 krstarice, 171 razarač. No, japanska je flota bila još veća, s 10 nosača zrakoplova i 10 bojnih brodova. Među njima i Yamato, najteži i najnaoružaniji brod u povijesti. U svibnju 1942. 2 moćne mornarice sukobile su se u bitci u Koraljnom moru. Japan je pobjedio i nastavio dominirati ostatkom Pacifika.
Japanese conquest had reached a high watermark. They controlled pretty much everything from China all the way down nearly to Australia and far out into the Pacific. And there was no intention of them stopping expanding.
There's a certain amount of hubris coming in here because the Japanese are starting to get victory disease. They're starting to become just a little bit overconfident and just a little bit complacent.
Mjesec dana poslije 2 mornarice ponovno su se sukobile u presudnoj bitci na Pacifiku. A sve se to dogodilo kod jednog udaljenog američkog otoka. Bila je to bitka kod Midwaya. Sukob, Drugi svjetski rat. Lokacija, otok Midway, Tihi ocean. Sukobljene strane, carska japanska mornarica protiv mornarice SAD-a. Četvrtog lipnja 1942. američki bombarderi borili su se protiv japanske flote dok se približavalo otoku Midwayu.
The enemy fleet was closely clustered together when American bombers swept down like a bolt from the blue to their surprise attack. Great damage was done to Japan's fighting ships, many of which were hit and were soon blazing furiously.
Japansko zapovjedništvo podijelilo je svoje brodove u zasebne skupine, no ta im se taktika obila o glavu.
What that meant was that the Japanese carrier force was left rather exposed.
Sljedećeg dana Japanci su ciljali jedan od najvećih američkih brodova, nosač zrakoplova Yorktown.
There's a dive bomber coming right at them. The Yorktown was hit, but only damaged.
Američki su se napadi nastavili.
First day we hit about 30 ships of all types, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, transports. Second day we hit the carriers.
4 su japanska nosača potopljena. Ti su brodovi nosili gotovo 300 zrakoplova.
The invasion forces were hit and hit and hit again.
At 10 a.m. on the 4th of June, the war is very much going the Japanese way. By 11 a.m. on the 4th of June, that balance has tipped, and it is a balance that is never reversed again. Aircraft carrier power was really, really important. Surface vessels alone, capital ships, battleships, heavy cruisers, that's just not enough.
The loss of those carriers is absolutely catastrophic to Japanese plans.
7. lipnja bitka je napokon završila. Japan je pretrpio strašne gubitke. Izgubio je 4 nosača zrakoplova, tešku krstaricu i oko 3000 vojnika.
The Battle of Midway is unquestionably a key turning point in the war in the East, in the war in the Pacific.
Budući da je preokrenula tijek rata, bitka na Midwayu na 5. je mjestu na našoj ljestvici. Sljedeći je iznenadni napad. Siječanj 1968. Vijetnam. Sjeverno-Vjetnamci i Vjetkong pokrenuli su ofenzivu Tet.
The secret plan of the North Vietnamese was to launch a very broad offensive across the whole of South Vietnam, which they hoped would induce a general uprising amongst the population of South Vietnam.
During the Tet Offensive, about 100 cities were attacked by many fighters, which is of course a major logistical and organizational feat. It also is quite surprising that the Americans didn't know more about it. There was some intelligence, but they didn't really take it seriously enough.
The clever part of the Tet Offensive was that it was done without very much warning.
U Saigonu je napadnuto američko veleposlanstvo. Vjetkongovci su držali američko osoblje zatočeno u zgradi 6 sati. No na rat će najviše utjecati ulična borba u 3. najvećem gradu i na 4. mjestu na našoj listi. To je bitka u Hueu. Sukob, Vjetnamski rat. Vrijeme od 30. siječnja do 3. ožujka 1968. Sukobljene strane. Narodno-oslobodilačka vojska i Vjetkong protiv južno-vjetnamske vojske i američkih marinaca.
Hue is one of the largest cities in South Vietnam. It's quite close to the border with North Vietnam, and it was situated in a strategically important site on the Perfume River, which controlled movement in and out of the interior of Vietnam.
Do kraja prvog dana Vjetkongovska se zastava vijorila iznad zidina drevne gradske citadele. Sljedećeg su dana američki marinci krenuli u protunapad. Dok su se stanovnici skrivali iza zaključanih vrata, bitka je počela i širila se od zgrade do zgrade.
The Americans weren't prepared to fight urban warfare, a street battle at this point in time. They were prepared to fight in the jungle, in open plains, but not in hand-to-hand combat.
The problem with fighting in streets, particularly when there's been, there's a lot of damage already done, is that it's very difficult to identify where your targets are. The threat can be everywhere. So it becomes quite frightening.
Initially, the Americans tried to move forwards, but small companies, they even used tanks to move behind, and they were beaten back. And it was very slow and very painful and heavy casualties in order to take even a couple of hundred meters.
Nakon 9 dana, američka pojačanja zauzela su položaje oko citadele. No Vjetkongovci nisu namjeravali tek tako prepustiti grad.
There were heavy casualties, a couple of thousands, on the part of the communists, but the town was finally, after 3 weeks, in the hands of the Americans again.
Bitka u Hueu bila je najdulja i najkrvavija u ofenzivi Tet. Amerikanci su izgubili više od 200 vojnika u borbi, a više od 1000 ranjeno je.
The Battle of Hue is often referred to as something that was the crucial turning point in the Vietnam War. While it seemed to be, in the end, a military victory for the Americans and the South Vietnamese allies, psychologically it was a different matter.
The impact in the long term was that it demonstrated to both the United States administration and probably more importantly to the United States people that this was a war that was going to be a lot more difficult to win than they had previously imagined.
From 1968 onwards, you see the support for the American war in Vietnam eroding slowly and surely.
Odlučujuća bitka za Hue na 4. je mjestu naše ljestvice ratnih bitaka. Sljedeća je bitka koja će ući u povijest kao najkrvavija. Francuska, 1916. Više od 1 godine nakon početka Prvog svjetskog rata zaračene su strane na zapadnom bojištu bile u pat poziciji. Saveznički zapovjednici u Britaniji i Francuskoj osjetili su da je potrebna velika pobjeda kako bi se podignuo moral. Na 3. je mjestu bitka na Somi. Sukob, Prvi svjetski rat. Vrijeme od 1. srpnja do 18. studenoga 1916. Najveća saveznička snaga, 51 britanska divizija i 48 francuskih divizija. Snaga njemačke vojske, 50 divizija. 1. srpnja 1916. Britanci su počeli tući njemačke položaje duž bojišnice duge 30 km. U 5 dana ispalili su gotovo 2 milijuna granata.
There's been a tremendous, earth-shaking bombardment. If you just hear one gun go off now, it sounds deafening. Imagine thousands of them firing together.
A zatim su topovi utihnuli.
The countdown starts. 5 minutes to go, men. 4 minutes to go, men. 3 minutes to go, men. 2 minutes to go. 1 minute. And then they have to climb up the ladders and go over the top. And as they do, the German guns open up, the machine guns, the artillery, and all hell broke loose.
Nakon što su isprva bili prisiljeni na povlačenje, Njemci su istog dana vratili dio teritorija. Do kraja dana Britanci su imali 60.000 žrtava. 20.000 vojnika poginulo. Nije bilo nikakvog teritorijalnog napretka.
It's a dreadful day. Why did it go wrong? It went wrong for so many different reasons. Our army wasn't ready. We didn't have enough guns. We thought we did, but we needed 3-4 times as many. We needed 5-10 times as many shells. We weren't ready, and unfortunately the Germans were. It was a disaster.
Ipak, ratovanje se nastavilo.
The Somme was not one day. The Somme is a 3, 4, 5 month campaign with constant battles. Some of them small, just a couple of battalions or 2 or 3 battalions going over the top. Some of them huge battles that were almost as big as the first day.
Nakon nekoliko mjeseci bitke, Njemci su napokon odbačeni. Ali ukupan broj mrtvih bio je nevjerojatan. Više od 1 milijun ljudi poginulo je s obje strane. Unatoč strašnim gubicima, je li se ofenzivom na Somi išta postiglo?
There were so many lessons learned from the Somme, everything from artillery tactics, in every way. The tank was introduced. They didn't quite master how to use it yet, but they were learning. They learned how to bring up reserves. It sounds small, but to take the attack forward.
The Somme is really a great victory for the Allies because the German army after the Somme is never the same.
You can never judge the Battle of the Somme by ground gained. That is an irrelevant measurement. It's not where the line is. It's how many of the German divisions you can chew up, how many Germans you can kill.
Bitka na Somi na 3. mjestu na našoj ljestvici. Slijedi legendarna bitka za grad koja je promijenila tijek povijesti. Rusija, kolovoz 1942. Njemačka vojska napala je Rusiju godinu prije, brzo napredujući kroz ruski teritorij i ostavljajući pustoš iza sebe.
Their victories are all about speed of operation, about getting a massive amount of force to just overwhelm your enemy very, very quickly. The moment they can't do that, and this is what Stalin realizes, they are in trouble. They start to become unstuck.
Premda nisu odustali od Moskve, Njemci su se sada okrenuli ključnom ruskom industrijskom gradu koji je nosio ime vođe države Josifa Staljina.
Stalingrad, simply by virtue of its name, held a certain amount of prestige, and I suspect that Hitler felt that if he was able to take the city which bore the name of his principal opponent, then this would deal a significant propaganda blow to the Russians.
Sukob, Drugi svjetski rat. Mjesto Stalingrad, Sovjetski savez. Najveća snaga njemačke vojske, 1.040.000 vojnika. Najveća snaga Crvene armije, 1.140.000 vojnika.
It's undeniable that Stalingrad was one of the biggest and most destructive battles fought in the 20th century and probably throughout history.
Njemci su najprije napali grad zračnim bombardiranjem koje je izazvalo golemu vatrenu stihiju.
The Germans think that Stalingrad is going to be quite an easy victory.
No Rusi su dobili naredbu da se opiru.
As the German army approached, the decision was later taken for political reasons not to evacuate the rest of the population. It was felt that Red Army soldiers would fight harder for Mother Russia if they were defending their own citizens.
What happens is the civilian population stay and fight in Stalingrad, that the forces there do not give an inch. And so what is supposed to be a comparatively easy battle for the Germans then becomes a dogged siege.
Nacistički osvajači probili su se u grad te suočili sa žestokim otporom.
It's absolutely unforgiving. You're moving from street to street, from building to building, from room to room, and every step that you take, somebody is opposing you. Somebody is trying to kill you. This was happening day by day, hour by hour.
A sniper waits his chance. This man has killed 40 Germans, and he awaits his 41st. The battles of Stalingrad factories were fought inch by inch. Gains of territory were counted in precious yards.
Do kraja rujna Njemci su podignuli zastavu s kukastim križem u središtu grada. Ali ipak nisu mogli istjerati Rusa iz nepreglednih industrijskih četvrti grada. A zatim je došla duga, hladna zima. Njemcima je počelo nedostajati vojnika i streljiva. Rusi su preuzeli inicijativu. Pokrenuli su protuofenzivu i pojačanjima okružili neprijatelja. Njemci su ostali bez resursa, a oni koji nisu ubijeni, zarobljeni su. Borba za Stalingrad trajala je 5 mjeseci, 3 tjedna i 1 dan.
In terms of the number of casualties, around about 800,000 on the German side, around about 1.2 million on the Soviet side, not including civilians.
For the Soviets, it's an amazing victory and something to be celebrated, and the Russian people today are rightly proud of the stand that they made, because that battle was one of the turning points of the Second World War.
Bitka za Stalingrad na našoj ljestvici na 2. mjestu. Na 10. mjestu bitka za Al-Kafdži. Na 9. bitka kod Sjuđoa u kineskom građanskom ratu. Zatim je ulična borba u Mogadišu na 8. mjestu. Tenkovska bitka kod Kurska na 7. mjestu. 6. je bitka za Britaniju. 5. mjesto pripalo je bitci kod Midwaya. Na 4. je mjestu bitka za Hue u Vjetnamu. Bitka na Somi zauzima 3. mjesto. Na 2. je bitka za Stalingrad. A sada ćemo otkriti tko je na 1. mjestu naše ljestvice bitaka. 6. lipnja 1944. Dan D. Plaže na sjeveru Francuske.
D-Day, it's probably the best planned and one of the largest operations of this type, if not the largest, ever attempted.
It involved thousands and thousands of ships. It involved 10 to 12,000 aircraft. It involved in the end millions of men on the ground. It was the largest amphibious operation in history.
It's a magnificent example of a set-piece operation, one that's been planned more or less from the word go to the last detail.
Cilj: osloboditi Normandiju od nacističkog čeličnog stiska, a zatim i cijelu Europu. S jedne strane su savezničke snage kojima upravlja general Eisenhower. S druge su Njemci kojima zapovjeda general Rommel. Njemci su znali da se bitka sprema, no nisu znali kada ni gdje točno.
Rommel is facing an enormous challenge because he's got to defend against invasion, and yet he doesn't know quite where it's going to be. Nor does he have enough troops, manpower, or weapons for the job.
Bila je to bitka koja će odrediti ishod Drugog svjetskog rata. Bitka za Normandiju. Sukob, Drugi svjetski rat. Sukobljene strane, njemačka vojska protiv savezničkih snaga. Vrijeme od 6. lipnja 1944. do sredine srpnja 1944. Mjesto Normandija u Francuskoj. Armada je krenula sa 7.000 brodova i više od 11.000 zrakoplova. Bitka je počela teškim bombardiranjem iz zraka te intenzivnim bombardiranjem s mora. Za to se vrijeme 150.000 vojnika pripremalo za borbu.
The weather was pretty poor. It was cold, it was wet, it had been miserable, but for most of them it's going to be their first time in combat. It's the first time that they've faced up against this mythical beast, the Wehrmacht. You've got that sense of uncertainty, that fear. Looking around you, you see what is the largest invasion force that's ever been assembled. You've got aircraft flying overhead, you've got the gun line, battleships, cruisers, destroyers off the coast of Normandy, ready to give that supporting fire, and you feel you're part of something absolutely enormous.
Suočivši se s neprijateljskom vatrom tijekom iskrcavanja, poginulo je više od 10.000 vojnika.
The Allies are faced with a heavily defended coastline. The Germans have been building what they call the Atlantic Wall, Fortress Europa, all the way down from the Norwegian coast down to the Spanish border. So there are fixed defences, concrete bunkers, pillboxes, minefields, anti-invasion defences, what were nicknamed Rommel's asparagus, great big lumps of iron in the water. You've got very difficult conditions.
Unatoč njemačkom obrambenom sustavu, savezničke postrojbe osvojile su plaže. Tijekom sljedećih 5 dana iskrcano je još 100.000 vojnika. Ali iako je saveznicima bilo teško boriti se na plažama, to je bio tek uvod u ono što su mogli očekivati u unutrašnjosti. Bitka se proširila u normandijske gradove i sela.
On D-Day itself, the Allies have all the benefits of the element of surprise, but the crucial moments are D-Day +1, D-Day +2, +3, +4, where the Allies are desperately trying to get that toehold, trying to build up that initial bridgehead they've got in Normandy. That is the time to knock them back into the sea. Once those forces build up too much, it's too late.
Njemačke snage podupiralo je 9 oklopnih divizija, no saveznike ništa nije moglo zaustaviti.
They can have a battle, the Germans can hold up the Allied advance, but ultimately they're never going to get them out of France again.
U samo 3 tjedna saveznici su iskrcali gotovo 1 milijun vojnika, 100.000 vozila i više od 400.000 tona zaliha. Normandija je oslobođena. Bio je to presudni poraz njemačke vojske. U roku od 12 tjedana saveznici su oslobodili Pariz, a Berlin je bio sljedeći. Bitka za Normandiju zavrijedila je svoje mjesto na vrhu naše ljestvice. Deset bitaka koje su promijenile ratovanje. 10 bitaka koje su oblikovale svijet.